Hey guys, welcome back to Content is Profit. Today I have a special guest. Way back when we first started our business, email was one of the things that everybody kept telling us to go do and collect and communicate with them, but we had no idea how to even get started. So this is why this guest is so important and so fun, the conversation that we just had, because we talk specifically about that. She has helped business over 100 businesses grow with the first email list and get their first 500 subscribers. To us, that was a huge milestone, and it took us years, and she's going to help us do it very, very quickly. You know, apart from that, we also talked about the value of the unsubscribe. You know, we shared this story where I was like, oh my gosh, sweating bullets. We're like sweating armpits, like Fonzie is saying, because I was so scared to send this email because of the unsubscribe. And we talk about that and why that is actually a good thing. We also talk about like, what are the emails that we need to send after they collect your lead magnet or different things. Like, does it need to be like a 30-day indoctrination sequence? Does it have to be like a full year indoctrination sequence? Does it have to be a 1-day thing? So we go specifically on like what to do after they download your stuff, and also what to do after you get that notification that somebody subscribed to your list, like in the first like 15 to 30 minutes. The cool thing is that these all applies to online businesses, service-based, and even brick and mortar businesses. So good. This conversation is packed with value. With that said, enjoy. Let's go, Shelley. Welcome to the Content is Profit podcast. For those that are tuning in, I'm Luis. Fonzie's not back yet. We're trying to convince the guys. Send them DMs. Be like, Fonzie, we miss you. Fonzie, we miss you. Come back to the show, please. But anyways, Shelley, I'm stoked because we met a couple weeks ago, right? Yes. You're about to go on a huge trip, but before you go on the huge trip with your family, you came here to teach us something really, really cool that I'm like, I need it for myself too. So off we go. What do you want to teach us today?
Well, I love to jam on, I feel like it's a term that scares people, but email marketing, because that's how you actually sell to your audience, and that's how you actually make money. And I really work with a lot of clients that are trying to sell from social or just trying to do their business on rented land, and they're missing that magic link of getting the people onto the list. And so I just love to help businesses, service providers, consultants, coaches learn that link so that they can actually start monetizing their audience and selling.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And by the way, guys, you know, we talk about the 6 levers, right? And between your distribution and monetization, there has to be that link that Shelley talks about. And I was like, when we connected, we're like, that's what we need. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go to businesscreator.club. You'll find the 6 levers there. And also we'll leave all the links right below. But Shelley, I know, you know, since we started this journey, me and my brother, every single person, every single entrepreneur, every single person that, you know, we've learned from masterminds, they're like, guys, email list, you know, bring the people to your own platform, communicate directly to them, find a way to do that. And it's been interesting. Like there's definitely different ways that you can connect and grab those emails. And I'll share with you like kind of what we've done. And then you'll be like, Luis, that was horrible. And then we're going to go through, I guess, a little bit of a playbook from like starting from zero if you have no email list and get to those 500, you know, followers, correct?
That's right.
Awesome. So before get into that, like, how do you get into this? Like, is this like your full passion? You're like, I want to collect emails.
No, I fell into it by default. So I actually have 20 years in the service industry, and I've worked in 4 different industries. And the one thing that was consistent was my personal brand. You know, you have a strong personal brand. It goes with you from industry to industry. And I realized that keeping those connections was so important. But then I was trying to do just like everyone else. And I was like, why isn't anyone buying my products and services and things that I'm posting online?
Yeah.
And it was through the magic of learning email and just how to sell through my email list that I actually transformed my business, and I doubled my sales when I went into implementing just some offers, some promotions, and emailing my list, and not trying to just hopefully they find me on social media.
Yeah. So what was the thing that changed there, right? Because a lot of people including us, right? Like we publish content. We're trying to be in as many platforms as possible. If you build a system, you can be multiple platforms. There's a lot of people that choose just to be in one and go deep in like one platform. But from there, like they seem to develop these relationships inside of that. One example is like our Facebook group, for example. We have about 300 members in there. We were lucky to collect those emails before we started the group as they were coming in, right? But some people miss that. They're like, oh, I started this group and maybe we have this engagement, but then like the next step, then I don't know how else to communicate with them. So like in your case, like what was it, like a moment that you're like, man, like I'm losing sales or I'm missing opportunities because I don't have that email list? And what was that first step that you took?
Well, first of all, I wanted to be more intentional about my selling instead of just hoping people find me and book me.
Yeah.
I learned about what it was to have an actual timed promotion and to put it out there. And then I also learned after that you can't really do that exclusively on social media because people aren't always on the platform. They aren't always seeing your post. And the most effective way to do that is to take those people from social media. And then once they're on your list, they're so much more likely to buy.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that just really resonated with me is, oh my goodness, what these people are much more engaged. You could have much more intimate conversations with people in your email list if you use a system to tag them and make sure. And it's I always say, instead of like standing out on the street corner and shouting with a bullhorn, which is what it is when you're trying to compete with all the algorithms and all the distractions on social media. And I love social media. So I'm not saying that I don't want to be on it, but you need that. I always say that bringing them to your email list is taking them off that busy street sidewalk and bringing them into your storefront. Yeah. Now you get to control the environment, the tone, the pace, the rhythm, the feel. And that's the magic that connects with people that allows them to want to get to know you more and eventually buy from you.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how do we start building those initial building blocks, right? Because they're like, okay, like how do I actually make the transition between that content that, let's assume we're providing consistent, frequent content that's valuable. We're solving problems for people, right? Recently, we just did an episode about a good friend of ours, Wes, right? He's an incredible dietitian coach. He was my college coach for, when I was playing at D1 soccer. I know if people see me now, it's like, you played? And I'm like, yes, I promise. I was like 40 pounds lighter. So I called him. I was like, Wes, I need your help, right? And he was like, I need your help. And I'm like, well, maybe Shelley can help you. Because like he's starting to build the audience and starting to build that. And we talked about this. We started about, delivering this like content that is valuable, solving problems. So let's say, he starts, lots of people starts, they're creating this. How do we make them that connection? Because people are not going to know, oh, I should send them an email, right? Like now people are also, I think, more educated too on like all this kind of stuff. And they're like, they can tell like if it's fishy, if it's not fishy. How do we come across as like a valuable resource for them so then they can give us their email, phone number, preferred method of communication?
Okay. We always have to, well, first of all, you have to start with a way to collect these emails. And that's the thing that a lot of people, just step one, get completely overwhelmed with.
Yeah.
And the people in the online marketing space love to make things complicated. They love to make things big and scary, and that you need these thousands and thousands and thousands of subscribers because they want to sell you the products. So I love to let's dial this down. Let's super simplify it and make it easy so that if you were sitting there with no one on your email list, we all started with our first subscriber. So how can we just get those first few people to actually subscribe? So you have to come up with a way to you have to pick a platform and a way to actually collect these emails. And that's something that's a whole nother conversation. But the best advice I could give you with that is don't get lost in the overwhelm. I always tell my clients, you have 60-minute timer. Set a 60-minute timer, do the research, and at the end of that 60 minutes, you have to pick a platform. Nothing this side of heaven is permanent. You can go back and change, but don't get lost in the minutia of just trying to figure out where to start. I will tell you, I love Kit. It used to be ConvertKit. It's super simple. I think it's a great way, especially for beginner email marketers, to start. And that's usually what I recommend. But I guess you can't get lost in just trying to even get started.
Yeah.
So step one, you got to pick that platform just so that you can even start to do the next few steps that we talk about. Step two is you need to really decide what problems that you solve. And, this is really kind of basic marketing, but you've got to figure out if you and your product or service take someone from like 0 to 100 with your transformation, what is step 1 or step 2? Like what's 0 to 2, 0 to 3, just something super simple. And that is the thing that you're going to need to offer of value so that you can lead with reciprocity, give them something that will solve a very quick problem. And this is what the people in the industry call a lead magnet, a freebie, an opt-in. And I don't believe in a one size fits all. And that's one of the things that I really, like to work with people on is what is actually the right one for your business? Because every business has different nuances, different industries. So what might be great for an esthetician is not going to be the right thing for maybe a fitness coach or a photographer or a coach. You've got to figure out what's right for you, but you've got to solve a quick problem for them.
Yeah.
The easiest one is always a downloadable PDF. People love checklists. They love things like that. And it's something I love to say that they could print out on the refrigerator and they're going to refer back to time and time again.
Yeah.
And that keeps you top of mind.
Oh, I like it. So quick recap, right? Step number 1 is pick the platform, which by the way, it took us years to pick the platform. Like we are the worst at this. And then once we pick it, we ended up changing it. Now we have the one that we use. But yeah, I think to your point, don't overthink is a very important point because that will stop a lot of people from doing the thing, right? Every single platform, and I promise we tested so many, they are decent. They're good. Like they will tell you exactly what the next step is. It's going to work. And then as you grow, you're going to find maybe some limitations and then there's going to be a solution if you do need to change. But more than likely, just listen to Shelley and just go to Kit. We've used that because of our network. We use a different platform now that we cannot mention in the show for sponsors purposes. But send me a DM and I can let you know. And then step number 2 is okay, pick the problem that you solve. The more specific, probably the better at that point, right? And then a way to deliver. I think on my side, I'll add, depending on your type of audience too, the way of delivery might be interesting. Just recently, I was on a show with Adam Shelby. He's also in the podcasting space, and he's incredible when it comes to social media. He has a very specific approach. He does Instagram threads. That's the only type of content that he does. And then he leads people into email through his newsletter. So what he said really resonated with me. And this is interesting. This might be a topic of discussion because I've seen success with both. For him, it's I don't do lead magnets because people will come to you because of that. And then that's it. They want that, right? He's they're going to sign up to my newsletter. It might be a higher friction point, might be less people, but they want to continue listening or consuming my own content, right? And that to me resonated a ton because I've been that guy that was oh, let me just get this little quick guide and then that's it. And then I unsubscribe or, so I've been on that other side of it. And I would like to hear your thoughts on it because I also been on lists that I get the downloadable, I get the results, I implement. Oh, this is awesome. And then I continue the relationship with that person or with that business, right? It's it's either or.
Yes.
So how do you pick? How do you go about it?
Well, I think that's such a good question. And I'm glad that you brought that up because I think that's where some people kind of miss the mark is they just want people on their list. So they start throwing together anything and they're not really intentional about where they want to take people. So for instance, you've got to, we've all heard this, you've got to start with the end in mind. So your lead magnet, your freebie, your opt-in has to be very intentional. I used to be in the photography industry and I would see people go to wedding shows and offer $100, chance to win $100 Amazon gift card if they would register for their list. Well, those people want the $100 Amazon gift card. They don't care. It's not even aligned with what they're trying to sell.
Yeah.
So you've really got to make sure that your entry point for your audience is something that solves a problem. And back to what I said, if your service or product is the full 7-course meal, maybe you could just give them the appetizer. Because again, I grew up in the South and I love Chick-fil-A. And I used to love to go to the mall when I was a kid because they only had them in the malls.
Yeah.
But what do? They stood outside with that platter of chicken nuggets and you got the sample and you're like, oh my goodness, I want to go back and get the 8 count or the full sandwich because and so that's what your lead magnet needs to do. It needs to be the Chick-fil-A chicken nugget to the full entree. And so if you're really smart about what you put out there, just give it. And the reason I teach this for a lot of people is creating the biggest struggle I see a lot of my clients work with is creating newsletter content on a regular basis. Like they already feel like they've got 1,000 things going on. And if you tell them they have to put together a heavy hitting newsletter every week, they're just going to shut down. So we have to figure out what's sustainable for you at this season of your life. And if you don't have the bandwidth to send out a newsletter every week or, even more, start with something downloadable or something easy. Again, an easy way to get started.
Yeah.
And then after that, you can start to nurture them with really good quality content that's aligned with where you're wanting to take them. Again, it's all intentional. It's that through line.
Yeah.
And then that's where you start to sell. But I think a lot of people that disconnect is that it's not aligned, that initial lead magnet, with where they want to take them in the end.
I love it. I think also people might think that is a lot more work than it needs to be. Like just recently, like it could be easier, right? It could be where it's like, hey, as soon as I download this thing, part of it, let's say you have an optional phone number field in there, right? Some people might put their phone number, some people might not. Let's say you put the phone number. Guess what? As soon as they come in, why don't you give him a quick call, right? Like, hey, Shelley, how you doing? This is Luis. I just saw that you downloaded, this guide. It's so awesome. Let me know if I can help you with anything, right? Like, and then it's incredible. We do something similar for our studio. We used to do that when I was working in the fitness industry. And the results were crazy, right? Because they're in that state of mind. Or even if you see the email come through, a personalized email back doesn't have to be a sequence, right? It could be like, hey, new lead came in. All right, let me send a quick email, maybe a Loom video, right? It's like, hey, Shelly, how's it going? Thank you so much. Obviously, as you scale, that might be a little bit challenging to do, but we're talking about the first few emails, right? So I think that personal touch is massive. And going off of your Chick-fil-A example, I remember, and this is how we learn, it's like, this is not the right lead for that stuff. When I was working at that fitness studio, a boutique studio, and like right next door, we had a pizza place and they were doing dollar slices every Thursday. And we saw this line of people, right, coming in and consuming the pizza. And I was like, man, like, look at all those leads, right? And we're paying at the time, I think $20 a lead online with ads. And we're like, we can just like buy 2 slices and then get their info and then hopefully call them and bring them in here, right? So we go in there, we set up the tent, we talk to the owner. The guy's like, yeah, absolutely. I think that day we got about 100 leads, something like that. It's like we spent, for the cost of like 10 online. And we're like, we're awesome. Look at all these names and emails. Well, first of all, half of them were fake. They just wanted the slice. Second of all, they didn't want to be there. They just want to go there and eat the pizza. So they just got a free slice of pizza. And third of all, it was not the ideal client. So like you said, it's like the Chick-fil-A, it was not relevant to that audience. Like they did not want the workouts. I think we saw 2 people come in and maybe 1 signed up, like maybe. But it was like horrible because there was like no context whatsoever. And you say like, start with the end in mind. I think it's so important that sometimes we lose track of that because we might be so like, is this lead magnet a good step towards what I have next? And sometimes we don't know what we have next, right? So for those people that are like in that phase, maybe they don't have a high ticket offer on the back end, or they don't have a coaching program, like maybe they have a service. Like, how do we align that? Like, do we have to sit down and have that fully ready to go? Do you work with people? Have you worked with people, have case studies that might have a product that they might be building, but they don't start the email list because of fear that they don't have it ready? Right? I think a lot of people are in that space.
I see that all the time. Especially I work with a lot of creatives and they have perfection. They want everything to be perfect. And as a former creative, I was a photographer for a long time, that we can really use that as a crutch to not get started. So one of my mottos that I say in my class all the time is done is better than perfect.
Yeah. And
start messy. And if you work with me, you hear those things probably every time you're on the phone with me, because that is what we're going to do. Done is better than perfect. And, back to everyone likes to make this so hard and so complicated. Marketing is testing, and stop holding things so tightly and so permanent. I always say, give something 90 days. We got to try for 90 days. Because if you don't, give it 90 days, you don't really know if it's working. So we have to pick I always say, pick what you like and see if it grows. Yeah. So pick a lead magnet, find out, obviously, as long as it meets those criteria, it leads to where you want to take them. Even if you don't know exactly, even if your just next right thing is to just start nurturing that relationship via email, you know what you're kind of wanting to talk about, what your next steps are. Just get them on the list and start talking to them. And you're building that relationship. And then when you are ready to launch or sell, they've already been on your list. You're probably your raving fans by this time, and they're going to be the first ones to pull their wallet out because you've led with reciprocity.
That's awesome. I think that takes off so much pressure of people, right? Like, because we think, we have to have it ready. The product has to be done. Well, sometimes the product might not even be a fit for that person, right? Because they don't really know. So a couple of weeks ago, we started the Find Your Voice Challenge in the Contents Profit group, right? I think we talked a little bit about this, but I remember that was the first time that I was going to email a list after probably a year or so, right? Super bad. Don't follow my example. And I was just sitting there before the first email, and it was like a little bit of a weekly campaign. We're adding value in there, and we're going to ask people to go and join this free challenge that we're doing in the group to reactivate, the engagement. By the way, full story, it worked out great. But I remember sitting there and I was like, man, we have about these 1,000 people that we've collected, then we have, these other people, 400 other emails from the studio when we acquired the studio that they kind of know that we're the new owners and we do this kind of stuff. I was like, I just need to rip the Band-Aid, right? And I was like, my first email was, hey, this is probably the first time in a long time that you've heard from me. If you don't know who I am, like, this is what we do. I'm ripping the Band-Aid. By the way, if this is not relevant to you, here's a big unsubscribe button. Just go ahead and click it. Like, it's fine if it's not relevant. I totally understand. But here's what we're doing. And then I just basically share, the next steps and, kind of, studio production and then the challenge. And I just like leaned into like the fact that we haven't like emailed so much. But that moment, I can see how super intimidating it was for me. Right. And I was like, I hit the send and I was like, oh crap. And I saw, 3 unsubscribes and I'm like, oh no. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's like, they might not be the people that you're looking for your business. Right. And I think we need to normalize the fact that people are just going to not follow, here and there. We do it all the time, right? You get emails and you're like, I don't follow this anymore. And that's totally okay. Right. So like, if you have, let's say somebody is listening to this, right? And they've been somehow collecting emails, whether they're like on Zoom calls, right? Or Calendly, and they have all those emails of people they've connected with, or maybe they had a lead magnet that was relevant and they're changing product, right? And they might have like a smaller type of list. What are the steps to maybe, I guess some people might call it revive that list or like re-engage with them? What are some of the tips that you recommend them doing?
Okay. So first of all, I want to talk about what you talked about, the unsubscribe. I think I have so many clients that just get so worked up over their unsubscribes. And there's a famous sales book back in the day called Go for No. Yes. And I tell my clients, if you're not getting at least one unsubscribe every time you send out an email, you're not sending enough emails.
Yeah.
So you need to be okay with that, because if they unsubscribed, they are actually helping you out. They never were going to be your client anyway. You're probably paying for that subscriber to send that email, and they're going to lower your open rate. They're going to lower your click-through rate, like all the metrics. So thank that person for unsubscribing because it makes your life easier. And I would always rather have someone have a smaller engaged list than a massive list with all these people that are not engaged at all. So I would rather you have 100 engaged subscribers than 1,000 people that you just collected randomly and they're not engaged at all. That's on the unsubscribe. So embrace it. It happens to all of us, and it's okay. They're doing you a favor.
Yeah.
Now on the warming up, I always call that like just basically how to re-warm up your list. There's several ways to do it. And again, this is where I think marketing is super personal. What does it look like if you were to have a relationship with a friend and you hadn't seen them in a year? What would you do personally to re-engage with that friend? Would you just do like your strategy where you just called it out and be like, hey, I'm back and I dropped the ball? That's great, because that's really aligned with who you are. Someone else might be like, oh, that's a little too much for me. And so you could just gently dip your toe in the water, be like, hey, life's gotten a little busy. We all get that. I'm back. And then don't really spend too much time on why you haven't been there. Just talk about what they're going to get. and say, I am so excited about, you obviously can address the fact that they haven't heard from you in a while. I want to reintroduce myself. And here is why I'm mailing you. This is what you're going to get. This is the transformation I'm going to offer through, these sequences or through this challenge or through this newsletter. And if you focus on where you're taking them, that's really what's the most important.
I love it. I think more and more today we have to lean so much more in like who we are and like more on the personal side, right? Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of people, especially now with AI, right? That a lot of stuff is almost like AI writing content for AI. The more authentic that we are in that sense, obviously we have to follow the principles and there's different frameworks that we can follow to create. But I think that's super important, right? It's like maybe a couple of lines, right? It's like, hey, I'm here. We're back. Fonzie, just is a dad, so he's not writing the emails. It's just me now. So you're not gonna see good writing. And then here we are. Let's reconnect, right? Like something like that. At the end of the day, we have to be more human, I feel like, right?
Yes, people want relatable. I mean, one of my favorite, podcasts is Mel Robbins, and I love the bloopers at the end. They want to see that. They want the peel behind the curtain, see what your life is like. That makes you more relatable. They build that know, like, and trust factor. So I say, bring it out. Whatever that looks like with your personality, at least the less formal you can be. You hit the nail on the head with AI. AI is making it so easy for people to create content that you really have to lean into your personality, your vibe, your storytelling, and making people feel like it's really you. And it's not just, Chat GPT writing your email and you copy and paste it and throw it into your newsletter, because people can sniff that out in a second these days.
100%. 100%. We've seen it over and over. And in one of the sessions that we did for the group, we talked a lot about that, where it's like, okay, should I? And Fonzie's like, this is like a discussion that we have 24/7. I do think that we need to use AI to leverage a lot of the stuff that we're creating, like to speed processes up. For example, there's different tools that can help you do that. But I think the creation process has to start with us, whether that's like that email, that lead magnet, right? It has to come from us. It's not like, let's say we're talking podcasting, right, for the studio. So it'd be like, okay, ChatGPT, what are the 5 steps to start a podcast, right? And it'll tell me, right? Let's say, I want to use that as a lead magnet, right? At the end of the day, it didn't come from us. At the end of the day, that's not our experience. So I rather start with me and then use AI to kind of help me, right? So for that specific example, be like, okay, we've started podcasts. We know the problems. We know like what are the friction points for this. I'm just going to either write it out super informally, or it's like, hey, here's the steps of how to do it. For me, the way of creation is a lot easier if I record a video or a voice note instead of writing. So less friction for me. So I'll do that video, be like, hey guys, like, here's how you start a podcast. Step number 1, decide that you want to do it, right? Nobody does that. Everybody's like, start a podcast, go to this platform and, click upload, like decide you want to do it, for example, right? So you say those things and be like, okay, now you grab that transcript or that thing that you wrote and be like, hey, maybe AI can help me structure it a little bit better for a lead magnet or different things, but it came from us, right? So do you find that there's a lot of friction with people trying to create like that? What is like that first solution? You said earlier in the conversation, the appetizer, right? To the next thing. Do you find that people get confused, or it's like, how do I actually pick the one thing? Do I have to keep that one thing? Can I have multiple lead magnets, right? How does that work?
Again, I think that depends on who you are. I have clients that have 7 different lead magnets, and I have clients that have 1. You have to know what season of life you're living in. Obviously, if you just had a baby or you have a toddler at home, you're going to be in a very different season of life than someone who's doing this full time or is an empty nester. And, so you've got to look at your situation first. And that's the most common thing I see where people start to just drop out is they overcommit at the beginning, and either to how often they're sending emails or they start to create these really complicated funnels because that's what some marketing expert told them. And then they throw their hands up and they're like, I'm done. I'm burned out. This is too hard. And they walk away. So your first step is you have to just really examine your life, your bandwidth, your business, and what feels authentic to you in this season. So for instance, I just graduated twin boys from high school. Congrats. I did not have that. Yes, we're celebrating. I did not have the bandwidth in the last 6 months to sit around and create complicated funnels. So I've done some really simple lead magnets that just allow me to start building that relationship. At the end of the day, you're just trying to start building that relationship. So back to find that one and figure out if it works, find that appetizer. So, and I am not opposed to discounting products if you're a service-based business. So I have an esthetician. She's one of my clients, and she offers 20% off the first service.
Yeah.
That's just a great entry point. And they get in. And then, of course, they're on her table. She's building that relationship with them, and that gets them in the door. And now she's nurturing them with emails, once, probably 2 times a month about skincare products. And they came in with a discount, but she over delivered so much on the service and the lead that they're now her fans for life. So again, it's like, what can you bring them to the table with? And then how can you over deliver? Yeah. And how can you just make them really excited to be in your world and to want to learn more from you? And back to marketing assessing. If you come up with a downloadable or a checklist and it's not resonating, you have permission to create something new. Yeah. You have permission to, and you kind of touched on it earlier, go back and look at the content you've already created. Look at your content that most resonates. So if you have a really, strong video or something like that, that's a really good sign that would be a great lead magnet. Yeah. So go back and mine your own content, see what's resonated in the past, and take that and start creating. You don't have to start from scratch and reinvent the wheel. Let's make this an easier lift by reflecting on what's worked to make it work in the future.
Yeah. I love it. We were at an event once, and one of the speakers, she built an incredible company. At the time they were selling, I think, like fitness supplements, and it was all aimed to women. And when she was speaking, she said, we built this company based on what our audience was asking for. And it was like the email, like every product that they launch, everything that they launch, any program that they did was because they asked their email list, be like, what else do you want? And they would like survey their email list 24/7. They would deliver value on the topics and the things, but they were like, they will gather like these indicators, and that will give them the idea of like the next thing. And so they will sell out of every single product. So since I heard that, I was like, wow, that's so awesome, because a lot of people start with on the other side. Most people start with like, oh, there's already a business, or they have an idea of their business in their head, or they're providing a service. And it's like, okay, now I have this thing that I have to market. I have to like add value to people to kind of bring them in here. Right. But maybe we're not finding a good fit is because we're not giving them exactly what they really want, or we're not, the exact solution that they want. So to me, like that idea has been so attractive. And again, right now we're in a position with like the 3 businesses it's like same as 3 layers, I guess, like with the community, the studio, and now the production teams, that at some point that was like that. But now we're in that spot where it's like, man, like, how do we continue? Like, and I think that's the approach that we're going to have with Business Creator Club. It's like, what do you want? Yesterday on the conversation with them, we're like, hey, what we have is the frameworks that we've developed that people kind of come and is a baseline, but we want to develop this with you. So if you become a founder, like we're going to be asking you a ton of questions. So like, make sure that you're involved because this is for you. I think that's the approach that I'm really excited about, and have that relationship with that person, because at the end of the day, it's a win-win for everybody. And anyways, that business went out to sell for a bunch of millions of dollars. And just now my wife has been selling like these birthday invitations on Etsy as a hobby. And like, there's like all the moms, and I think in like 2 months she sold like 100, right? Not with no effort. She's just been putting designs out there. And I was like, babe, do you have the emails of these people? And she's like, zero entrepreneur. And it's like, can we send them an email saying thank you? And it's like, what else do you want? Because it's a birthday. So what else after the birthday? It's like, the cake recipes or ideas for a cool birthday party. Like, what else can we like, build off of this? It's just like, stop. I don't want to go do that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's going to be so awesome.
Those people that are married to us entrepreneurs just don't get it sometimes.
I know. I'm like, wait, how many emails have you collected? And she's like, I don't know. I'm like, what are you talking about? Oh, that's awesome. Have you seen, as we wrap up, because we're almost over, but this has been awesome. Thank you, Shell. Appreciate it. So with that, what I mentioned, like there's platforms out there that also allow us to collect information, right? And I think this has been a thought too. maybe you don't have your own platform, but maybe, you're an Etsy seller, you sell on eBay, you sell like different things, maybe products, right? And obviously you're selling at that point in like you call it rented land, right? There's people have these side hustles, different things. In that specific case with Etsy, right? Once they make a sale, you can collect that information and then you can connect with the platform and then you continue that relationship. So these like mini products or mini things that you sell, they become like your lead magnets in a way, right? Have you had experience with different platforms like that? How do you recommend making the transition? Is it similar to what we talked about?
Well, I'm not sure as far as the connecting of the platforms, but I've had a lot of clients come in with client lists from, say that, say these are people that I've worked with and they're like, who can I add to my list? Like what's the line? And I'm not going to say there's a right or wrong answer, obviously. Yeah. But I always say if they've done business with you in the last year and you've exchanged money, you can absolutely put them in, let them start getting, nurturing emails from you. I'd prefer you not to wait a year, but if you have those, put them in there. And again, there's an unsubscribe button and people will unsubscribe and that's fine. But you have to lead with value. Like, thank you for your purchase. Like here's, if they purchased a product or service, here's 5 ways to maybe use this product or service that you haven't thought about before. And again, like they're giving them value. And then one of the things, I was just on a call with a client this morning, what is easy to us in the business? Like we're so, involved in our business and we're overwhelmed. Sometimes we forget to go back to those very beginning stages of what it's like for our clients to just start working with us. And we have so much knowledge and everything packed in our head that we forget to share that. So if you could just take some time, step back about 5 steps and say, okay, what would it be like to be someone who just started working with me? What questions or what value could I offer? Send that to them in a couple emails and they're going to be so excited to start hearing from you.
That's so cool. Awesome. All right. To recap, the quick path, right? Let's say we're creating content every single day. We chose the platform. Let's say they chose Kit, right? I'm assuming that platform has a little bit of a landing page or a website where, hey, if you go to, let's say, Business Creator Club or Shelley, what's your website so people can go there?
ShellyNiehaus.com.
Perfect. You can pick either or. And then go on their side. Hey, by the way, here are the 5 steps to, build your first email list of 500 people. Here are the first 5 steps to build an incredible, awesome podcast, right? And then they click that. The platform is going to help you on the back end to deliver that to them, right? And then continue the conversation. So
yes, you want to make sure that your freebie is delivered right away, just so they get that value. And then you're correct. Sorry, yes, you do continue that conversation.
That's awesome. And then as a baseline, when people, let's say they're starting from scratch, you're like, okay, I picked my platform. I know what problem I'm solving for the initial lead magnet. I'm already delivering value in my content and I'm sending them to this little domain that I have. They download the thing. What are the next steps? Like, do you recommend like a 30-day email sequence, a 3-day email sequence, a phone call, like another email, a personalized email? It's like, obviously it might be depending on the business. But like, what are the things that you've seen that maybe help people a lot, that remove the friction, right, from executing? I think that's important.
So I say people consume content in different ways, as you're probably very aware. So some people are going to read, some people want to, videos or whatever. Yeah. I think a simple 3-step welcome sequence is very easy. They get it. You follow up with them to make sure they got it. You ask them, if they had any takeaways or any questions, and then maybe the next step that they will hear from you. Like, say, I will send you, emails once a week. Let people know the frequency, because then if they know they're going to get an email, once a week or once every 2 weeks or once a month, they're going to be a lot less likely to unsubscribe than if they think you're going to start blowing them up every day. So you got to be kind to them and remember, honor that email address. So that's the written one. And then you really hit the nail on the head. I think the magic, especially in smaller email lists, is don't treat people like numbers. I've done several things where I've literally taken the email out of my email system and sent them one from my personal email address so they know they're not getting blasted. And I've just welcomed them and said, thank you, and created a short Loom video. or you can do, as you said, pick up the phone. I know this is crazy, but pick up the phone and call them. Do you understand how much you will stand out from someone and the thousands of other email marketers? If you actually leave them a voice message or send them a personal text, they're going to be mind blown. So again, stop treating your list like numbers and treat them like the people that they are. And that is the magic that's going to turn them into raving fans.
Oh, so good. I know some people are listening to this are like, that's going to be so hard to scale. And like, they might not even be there. Right. And I think that's where our head goes. But I think it's super important to do the unscalable, right? At the end of the day. Right. And then there's a way that if that brings value and it gets the results in your company, there's a way that we can figure out how to scale it. And there's a famous event, or like there's a piece of content that has been like going up a lot that I resonated a lot with, is with Alex Hormozy. And he says that he's like, do the unscalable. And it's like, he was talking to this entrepreneur and the person is like, well, what's your sales system? And he's like, hey, I do workshops. It's like, what's your closing rate on your workshops? And he's like 90%, right? Because they come in, they do this thing, right? And he was trying to find a different way to do that. And they've tried so many things. And it's like, what are the results on those? Well, 10%, 15%. It's like, why don't you continue doing the workshops, right? And the guy's like, do you hate doing the workshops? No, I don't. Like, I actually like it. So it's like, why are we looking for that stuff? So I think that's important, especially what a blessing is that to have, 3 new people that reach out to you every single week that you can talk on the phone with them, right? Like, I'm going to give a huge shout out to Mary and Dana. I connected with them. They became part of the founding members of Business Creator Club. Their episodes published last week. And it was something like that. One was in Australia, the other one here in the States. And it was not a phone call, but it was a DM, like a video DM. And then immediately, right? And they've been waiting patiently for the launch of the club since like February. And they're like, dude, like the fact that I asked them, like, why are you still here? Right. And they were like, the fact that you guys communicated with us, basically, that's what it is. So super valuable. Shelley, thank you so much for your advice today. How can people connect with you? How can people reach out to you?
I have a podcast, Marketing Tips for Small Business Owners, really for all kinds of service-based providers and entrepreneurs. And I am on Instagram at Shelly Niehaus, as well as my website that I mentioned earlier. And I honestly I love to connect with people and build relationships. So send me a DM and let's just talk. Let's just start the conversation.
Yes. So awesome. So last thing, what is like one action point that you want people to take home with them and be like, I can execute on this today?
Pick one step that we talked about, whatever your step is. And I want you to set a 60-minute timer and I want you to go do it this week.
I like the
Don't
timer.
overthink it.
Yes.
Yeah. 60 minutes. So if it's picking your platform, if it's creating that first lead magnet, if it's writing that email, wherever you are in the process, pick your step, set the timer, and remember, done is better than perfect. And we're looking at progress over perfection.
That's right. I love it. And then that question, I know you publish content, like, where will you be if you never published any type of content?
Where would I be?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I'd be hanging out with my dog in the backyard or something. I mean, you got to put yourself out there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I love it. Well, Shelley, I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for tuning into the Content is Profit podcast. Go ahead and pick your one thing, put the timer, and start emailing people. They want what you have. You are solving a problem for them. Is a disservice not to let them know that you do that. Just saying. Thank you guys. Take care.